the topic this morning, conscious design. That's essentially what we're talking about. It's just an awareness, isn't it, of our immediate environment and that outside of our environment as well. It's going to be a good topic, I think.
Can you hear Paul's accent?
Yes, I can. But what do you mean?
He's
from a strange land.
He's an African. He's from Africa.
Oh, okay.
And I have, this is not one of those conversations, do you know my family who live in Baton Rouge kind of ones, but yes, I have a cousin that is in the US, and well, actually two of them. They're both in the New Orleans, and they've been there for 30 years and love it. Love it. Absolutely love it.
You said in New Orleans, right? I actually went there after Katrina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as you were talking and you're talking about the stores and things, I can remember we went downtown to drive through, and you could see where the water line had been.
Yeah, extraordinary.
And it was like 11 feet up, and it was just, and whole neighborhoods, everything gone. We went to the 9th ward, which was hit the most, because everything is like destroyed. And there's this house that looked perfectly normal. They had their water sprinklers on. They had a beautiful green lawn, and they were like, it was like they were camping in the middle of this destruction. And I was like,
isn't it?
How did they do that?
How?
Yeah. But they had a generator.
Oh, okay.
They had it. But that was just, I remember driving by, I thought everybody must just drive by and just look at them, because all this destruction, and here was this little oasis of heaven in the middle of all that. Yeah.
Without design, they wouldn't have a house.
See, and what I was thinking too, just as I was thinking, and look, the first thing they did was make it attractive, right? It was like there were, I'm sure they had lots of things that needed to be done, but when you went by, it was neat as a pin. I don't know if it looked like it did before, but it was important. And that was one of the things people talked about, is we just want to feel we're at home again. And there's so much about what all three of us do. It's like creating that home either again or future home or whatever, that I think is the magic. And
The topic today is going to bring us back to this idea of balance. And Paul's whole career and life has been about making sure that we are conscious and we are aware. And one of the things that I didn't realise about Paul, Bobby, but he is a beautiful writer. Apart from being a beautiful man, he writes brilliantly, and I cannot wait for his first book, because he is just so talented. And the depth of your insights, Paul, are amazing. And I think that these are obviously things that you bring into the many, many award-winning homes. We can see behind you that there's an award, an interior design award, and just the beautiful, beautiful work you do, which is obviously distinctive to each home that you work in. So
thank you, Tracy. That's lovely of you to say. Thank you. Really
looking forward to talking with you. Paul Coulson from Earthborne By Design, and of course,
Bobby McGrath with successful staging out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Paul, we're working on getting smooth, so you get to be with us as we're working on getting smooth. And of course, I'm here as always with
Australia's own Tracy McLeod from Presentation Cells.
Yes.
So welcome, Paul, and lovely, lovely to see you today. So Paul, you have really, I've been having a sneak peek at your bio and looking at the fact that you have worked across 3 continents or 3 countries. It's
continents, yeah.
New Zealand. Is New Zealand 2 continents?
It's a continent. Yes, I would call it. It's an island continent.
There we go. There we go. So Australia, New Zealand, and beforehand in South Africa.
Oh, and sorry, for Asia.
Oh,
Asia. Yeah, there you go.
Whereabouts in Asia?
So the story goes, in 2002, I decided I needed a break from my, I had a small below the line advertising agency, and I sold it, inverted commas, gave it away to one of the larger advertising agencies. And the deal was that I would do a handover period, but I said to them I was burnt out and I needed a bit of a holiday. I had this fantasy of having a skiing holiday, snow skiing, that is. I could water ski, but I hadn't snow skied before, but I had this fantasy about it. And on the South African rand at the time, the most inexpensive way of doing it was to go to New Zealand. And I went to New Zealand on this holiday, and I have to stress it was a holiday. There was no intention of leaving Africa. I was going to be one of the last ones standing with a white flag, but life had another idea for me. And while in New Zealand, I met up with one of the partners of a big accounting firm, an international one, and he ambushed me into an interview. And 3 weeks later, I was in Hong Kong doing business strategies. So it was unbelievable, the experience that I gained from that. So yes, it was based in Hong Kong for a while, Tracy, with Auckland being my home base, while I was trying to figure out how I wound up South Africa as a home, because I literally left I was very rich. I left South Africa with the equivalent of $500 and a bag of clothing, and I thought I was wealthy as. But it was an extraordinary adventure, and it brought me to Australia, and started my career basically in the building industry. So yes, 2002 was a milestone here, 20 years ago.
And what area of building industry did you start in, Paul?
You see, so this is an interesting one. There was a company based in Perth who were dabbling in sustainable building products, and they just didn't know how to put the whole thing together. So I put together a brand strategy for them, and also just a business strategy. The advice at the time was not to take the system that they had to a franchise system, but it fell on deaf ears, and they took it to a franchise system and duplicated the hell out of it. But the market wasn't ready. And I think that's a massive lesson. Australia certainly is only now really starting to look at sustainability as an option in design, and still not hugely. It's not part of a design culture yet, and I think it shouldn't be something that is an afterthought. I think we should really start being more conscious of bringing sustainability into design. Anyway, so yeah, the company that I then joined, because when they realized that their franchise system was duplicating, they needed to support these structures, and they weren't ready. And the rollout throughout Australia, from 0 to 10, basically showrooms of sustainable building products. But it didn't last, and it's a sad tale, but it was the start of my interest in sustainable design, basically. And I'm very grateful for that experience.
A great start in the business, in having your own business in the future. Or we'd already had your own business, but having, yeah,
well, a completely different direction. Yeah.
I laugh and say that our life is what happens when we are busy making other plans. And
Indeed.
So what I love about your story is that you went with opportunities that presented themselves. Things don't always work out, but sometimes people say, oh, it didn't work out. They don't really want to dwell on it. It's the things we learn when things don't work out that make us so much more
extraordinary lessons, probably. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it
brilliant lessons, and insight and knowledge, and this yearning for understanding new things, and why sustainable design is important. So yeah, it was a blessing. It was a huge blessing, and not a period of time that I regret. I think sometimes we need to be aligned as well. So and I quote, and Tracy would have heard me use this analogy before, in terms of finding your tribe. You've got to find your group of people that you're aligned with, and that you can kind of go on your little crusade with. And we don't need to do this alone. And I think that's one of the challenges for the design industry on the whole, is that I think we're often too ego focused, and not willing to be open to inviting communities in, and learning from one another and supporting one another. And I think our industry is one of those wonderful industries where collaboration is powerful. You know, it doesn't need to be in isolation. You know, if we think about how the design industry has morphed into, you know, there was decoration as a field of practice, and there was design as a field of practice, and now there's home staging and there's styling and all of these wonderful creative outlets. And we don't have to all be good at all of them at once. Right. So if we reach out across the aisle and start supporting one another in a way. So, I mean, I always use the example. So someone's building a new home, and there's an architect or a designer involved, and there's a builder involved, but not all designers want to decorate or style.
That's right.
You know, so there is an opportunity. And it just is one of those industries where we have real opportunity for expansion rather than looking at this kind of insular, it's all about me, you know, signature work and brands. And we have a responsibility, a massive responsibility as design professionals to create sanctuaries. I mean, that's a massive responsibility, and nobody acknowledges that enough, I think. You know, it's not a vanity deal. I think it's an integral part of our well-being is to have beautiful spaces, beautiful environments. Your example of the beautiful house after Katrina, just standing there, it's the presence of that beauty that makes the difference. So yeah, there's a consciousness shift that's coming more and more, and I'm starting to see it, and it's quite exciting. And sometimes I think, you know, catastrophic events like tsunamis and wars and weather events, you know, it becomes the catalyst for people's consciousness shift. It kind of says, maybe we should be thinking differently about something. We shouldn't just be one track about it. And that's exciting, you know. I think it's very exciting.
Paul, you know, today our topic is on conscious design. So how would you describe conscious design? What's your definition?
I think if we looked at the definition just of consciousness, it's defined as the state of being aware and responsive to one's surroundings. I mean, that's the essence of it. And in interior design, it's the level of consciousness that gets wrapped up and incorporated into every decision that we make about the design. It's something that we need to willingly almost lean into as we build and design and furnish and style homes for our clients. And when it's done in the right way, it has a profound and significant and truly transformative effect on our health and well-being. And I think that is an important part that we should really not lose sight of, is our personal well-being is linked to that consciousness. You know, we can talk about environmental impacts and things, but when our environments are beautiful and tranquil and safe, all the things that we need from our homes, then it impacts on our well-being. It's powerful. It's very, very powerful. And I think in my own business, that's kind of my go-to, is creating calm sanctuaries. You know, that's my go-to.
So the one thing as I was learning about you, one of the things I enjoyed, the voice that I heard from your website, for instance, was that you do seem to really focus on what it is that the client wants. And your goal is in the different examples of your work and everything on their beautiful work. They have different, I say flavors. I taste color, so it makes sense to me, different flavors. And I look at that, and for me, when working with someone who's in a design perspective, you know, I'm looking at, there's two different clients I see. Some clients, they are like, listen to me, I want it to be what I want it to be, which I think is your voice everywhere. Then there are those people who say, I have no idea, make it something for me. And so I was getting from your website that you're actually the bridge that brings these two sides together. It's like, this is unconscious design. Just make it pretty, Paul. And then these are people who are, this is what I want to feel. And what I liked about what I saw on your site was how you actually start drawing these people towards consciousness, towards realizing pretty is not enough. It needs to be that.
Pretty is not the objective. The objective is to understand how we end up living in those spaces. Are they functional? You know, yes, there needs to be the personality or the style is important, but I think more important is the fact that we have to have environments that work for us, that are comfortable, that are healthy, that are functional. And yes, the aesthetic value plays a huge part in it, but it's not the objective for me when it comes to design.
So do you
That's
have like
the kind of icing, you know, it's putting the icing on the cake, if you may. Yeah.
Because I was just wondering if you have like a process where you can draw those people, draw that out of them. Do you have a process? Like, is it just kind of instinctive with you? Do you have a formal process to help draw that information out? How do you do that?
I'd love to say I'm going to sell you a system, but there is no system because people don't humans are not templates.
Gotcha.
And I think the important thing is to listen very carefully. I always use an example of a client a few years ago who was talking about a sofa that she had bought for a home that hadn't been built yet. So picking up those cues are the important bits about design to actually listen to the client. And this is not going to be said in a disrespectful way. I put clients in two very distinctive boxes. And you talked about unconscious and conscious design, but the two boxes that I get are very simply clients who want assistance and need help with direction.
Okay.
And they're clients that want validation. I'm not very good with validation clients.
Oh, okay. I feel you. I feel you.
So validation clients often want you just to agree with choices or a direction without offering an opinion. But then why engage somebody who wants to assist you with direction? So I think, you know, that's, and Tracy would bear me out on this, and Bobby, I mean, I don't know about how involved you are with the process of procurement and all of that kind of thing. But when clients aren't ready to heed the information or the direction we offer, it often becomes a rambling mess. It loses cohesion. And I think that's the important bit for me, is to find a way of creating cohesion in spaces. I mean, a good example of you ask about process. No, there's no process other than a very simple one. You know, in the good old days, before technology, we would have used scrapbooks and magazines, but now, because we live in technology, Pinterest is a wonderful, wonderful platform, as is House. But I use Pinterest quite a bit because it's a very visual platform. And when I'm kind of confused about someone's personal style, and we all have a personal style. There's no, you know, when people say to you, I'm not sure that I have a personal style, it's interesting what happens when you send them into the world of Pinterest, because very quickly there's some kind of cohesion that starts happening without them even realizing it. Right. So I'd say to them, go to Pinterest, drop some images into a folder, and don't think about how it's going to work in your home. Just pick things that appeal to you. And amazingly, suddenly there's a style, you know? And that's the framework with which to work. You know, and other times you can walk into someone's home and have a very clear idea what their style is, and you work with that. But the ones that say to you that I have no sense of style, it's extraordinary to see how quickly they get involved when they actually realize they have one.
That's fun.
That's exciting for me. Yeah, it's fun.
That is fun. Yeah, that would be fun. You know what I like to do too, when they say I have no idea, and I say, well, what kind of colors make your heart sing? I don't know. And I go, take me to your closet. Yeah, you go into their closet and you walk in there, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, so now, because I tell them, look, your house is your theater, honey, you should look good in your own house. So if these are the colors you love to wear, let's use them in your house, you know. But that's always a fun thing for me.
Yeah, good one.
Drag them in the closet.
Well, some need to be dragged out of the closet.
Yeah, so, it depends.
Well, how does that all play with conscious design? How do you weave the fabric of sustainability and recycling and an awareness of how that ultimate design not only complements the environment, but nourishes and nurtures the owners of the home or the family or, you know, the people who are going to be living in it?
The trick is, Tracy, a lot of people aren't ready to have a conversation about sustainability or ecology or green design practices. And I think when we just weave them in as a matter of course, and I think that's our responsibility as design professionals, other than creating these sanctuaries, but we have a great responsibility because we're at the forefront of what is available to our clients and the things that we source. So ultimately, I'm finding it's not a conversation that you necessarily have with your clients directly, unless that conversation comes up with them, because then it's an easy conversation. And more that's happening, which is very exciting. But for the most part, Tracy, you bear me out on this, is particularly in the Australian context, it is so price driven. Everything has got this dollar value. It hasn't got the responsibility value attached to it. So the value lies with money rather than in the improvement or the environment. So I think our responsibility ultimately is just to weave it in naturally. And you know what, if you then say to the client, well, you know what, the floor we picked for you comes from a sustainable forest, you know, so you start having those conversations in a soft way. It doesn't need to be a big stick. And I think that, yeah, it doesn't need to be alienating. And that's the important part, I think. We just have to weave it into our everyday practices. And it's our responsibility to learn these things on a daily basis. You know, we're exposed to so much stuff, and then to weed it out is what's important. You know, think about what's going to go into a landfill. Why are we buying cheaply? Is there longevity in what we're considering for our projects or our designs? So yes, our responsibility, not the clients.
So making conscious design unconscious or subconscious, so that
subconscious, yes.
Subconscious. There you go.
So that we're able to help the people, the planet, and the place that they're living in. Oh, look at me. I'm full of alliteration.
Look at you. That's like, you're on tonight, Tracy. So, Paul, so my question is this: where do you think the easiest way to introduce sustainability to, like, products wise, to someone when you're talking to them? Because I'm looking at the staging process. Generally, what I have is that we're just trying to update, not necessarily upgrade something. And so what I'm wondering is, with sustainability, there's so many layers to just that word, what that means exactly. But like, what are the products that you think is like the easiest thing to kind of start introducing so people can see that it's not something scary or exotic or way expensive? Like, where do we start?
It's a big question, because again, the example I gave earlier of people being so price conscious, you know, it's just, it's about volume. So the price comes down. So that's a bit scary for me in a way. I will admit that. In your space, in terms of staging, I think the whole principle of upcycling and reusing and those wonderful ways of reinventing a space with the same things is so important. And it doesn't lack personality. So staging is not a big part of my business. I still do it for a couple of select agents. But what I'm guilty of in that space, and it's probably a no-no really when it comes to home staging, and particularly for selling, is to personalize. I tend to want to personalize. I want to make it soft and pretty and homely, and you know, I understand there's a formula. But the important thing for me is, I think, as much as we can, if you're carrying an inventory or if you're hiring from a staging company to be able to offer the service, and I think that's a responsible way already of doing things, rather than buying stuff and having more and more inventory. If there are facilities that are offering you the ability to select products to stage your homes for your clients, that's already an environmental tick, because we're reducing the amount of consumption, we're reusing, and yes, they have a responsibility as companies to update their inventory in a way that is current and on trend and all of those things. But yeah, reusing, upcycling, and also if you're doing your own buying, is being more aware of who you're buying from.
I think there's a couple of things there to unpack as well, in that, if I could offer 3 areas that come to mind as far as easy areas in which to be able to introduce more environmentally conscious products, is probably flooring, painting and lighting, because they're 3 areas where there are huge advances in recycled flooring or low VOC or no VOC paint products, as well as lighting, how long the lighting bulbs last and things.
Absolutely. And those are things we can control, Tracy, which is great.
Yeah.
We can control that without it being a big, we need to make environmentally conscious decisions, because there's lots of choice. There's lots of choice in terms of floor coverings. There's lots of choice in terms of paint companies who are now just doing low VOC because they're just doing it, which is great. So there's been huge shift in those spaces. And from a power and energy point of view, yes, lighting, LED lighting is so much better than it used to be in terms of the power draw and
the light bulbs. I got to share the light bulb talk. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I have a kitchen that opens up into my family room and the dining and all that. So it's like open, and those are the lights we have on all the time. Okay. If I talk too fast, let me know, because I guess to you guys, I'm a little exotic. So anyway, I live my life to try to someday be exotic, but I digress. So the light bulbs, there's like 8 light bulbs in my ceiling. Okay. So I just had regular old light bulbs in there and everything. Well, one burnt out and I thought maybe I should try some LEDs. So I did. I got them. I put them in there. Love them because I could adjust what temperature, what Kelvin rating. I could do the light bulb or the last little switch. And then I can use the slider to determine. I can, the little fade switch on the light switch, the dimmer switch, that's it. I could make it any color I wanted. But what I realized, because we leave those lights on all the time, $25 a month is what we're saving in electricity just from replacing those 8 light bulbs. So, I mean, people say, but people go, oh, those light bulbs are like $8 a piece. I'm like, do you realize how fast they've paid for themselves?
Yeah. And they last you 12 years or 15 years, So.
And they don't put off the heat. They don't. There's so many good things about them. So whereas before I was like, yeah. But now I'm like going, oh my goodness. So one room, $25 a month. That's incredible to me. Yeah. So if anybody's listening, start with your light bulb.
I was just going to say also, you don't get the pushback from builders in those 3 areas either, necessarily. They might with the paint, but with the lighting and the flooring.
Supplier, they might, Yeah, and I think those are the unconscious conscious choices. I just love that analogy that you made, Tracy. They are the unconscious conscious choices that we can make to make our environments better. Like I said, I don't want to give a scientific explanation of why environmental impacts are what they are and why we should be more considerate. And I think we just need to be more aware of our living environments. It's that simple. If that is the starting point for all our design decisions, and particularly design professionals, that is our responsibility. So we are the changes that need to be made. We're the responsible party here, because if we're not, then we're not doing our job, I don't think. So yes, we just need to be a little bit more aware of what we do and the choices we make for the environments that we live in. I mean, I saw an interesting little anecdote. And this was taken from an American context, Bobby, but I think it's relevant on an international basis, is that according to the EPA, the average person spends 93% of their lives indoors. So if you think about that, 93% of our time is spent indoors, where the concentration of pollutants, for example, is 5 times higher than it would be outdoor. So if we just take that into consideration, it makes us think really differently about what we're going to be putting into our homes as well. The products that we use to clean, or you walk into a supermarket and suddenly you've got shelves and shelves and shelves of cleaning product, and everything is going to clean it better than the next. And, it's got more powerful cleaning attributes than the next product. And it's just, so it's an overwhelm from a consumer point of view in terms of even those simple choices that we make about what we bring into our home. So I think, as a start, those are very simple little conscious choices that we can change. When we realize that we eat, sleep, breathe, and interact and everything within our home environments, we really should be thinking about how that we need to improve that. So another conscious choice we make as far as our homes. It's not just a design practice, it's our living practices that matter.
I was thinking
we're
as
so
you were
health conscious. Sorry, Bobby, we're so health conscious and we try to make healthy food choices. But what you're saying is let's take that further and, make healthy cleaning choices, healthy, if we're spending so much time in our homes, and we all know that we've been spending so much time in our homes, that it is really important that we start to think at least about what's available and
air quality in our homes. Open the door, open a window, those kind of things. It's just, those are conscious decisions. So you see, when we talk about conscious design or conscious living, it's just an awareness. It's not this scientific woo-hoo, you got to learn and go to university to understand it. It's just being more conscious about our living environments.
So the whole reuse thing too, I think as designers, one of the things I run up across a lot on the staging side is I will walk into a home and people are apologizing. They're like, I know these cabinets are old, but they're solid wood. I just hate to get rid of them. And I know they're not the latest and the greatest and all these things. I believe that it's our job, if they are fabulous, to utilize them. Everything shouldn't look current. Everything should not look current. It drives me nuts. It's like, and I mean, you can tell from my house, right? It's like, it's arts and crafts style is my home. So I've got a lot of quarter sawn oak wood and things throughout for trim and all those things. I would never paint that. Now, out in the world with just a builder built house, I'm going to paint it white, paint the trim white so I can do something with it, right? But it's like understanding the history of the home and understanding where you are, I think is really important. And so when I have clients who are trying to get me to do what they've seen in the magazine and it does not fit their house, it does not fit their area that they're living in, and everybody wants to use there's a Sherwin-Williams color, everybody wants to use agreeable gray. It's like agreeable gray. I don't want to hear it because it's a beautiful color when it's a beautiful color. Otherwise, it's a bad choice. But so as you're talking, I'm thinking we need to understand that we don't have to change everything in order to make that. And I think that's a huge step to the sustainable, because everything you can get rid of everything. I mean, I look back and I think, I remember growing up and people would have the same dining room for 30, 40 years. I'm working with those clients, right? But now their kids, their grandkids, they don't want that furniture. They would rather go get something that you could make. It's going to last a couple years. It's going to fall apart. They're just going to throw it in the landfill and get another table. And so I think also we need to get people to understand and appreciate history and to appreciate quality, because people don't understand what quality is. I talk about dove-ended drawers and things.
Dovetail drawings.
Yeah, dovetail, and they're like, and they don't know what that is. Craftsmanship. Yeah, no, they just want it fast. They want it fast and for $1, and if it breaks in a week, I'll go get another one.
It goes to our instant gratification needs. We need to press a button and it must just arrive. And we need to, this immediacy concept is what drives this consumerism and our lack of awareness for what that actually means. So I think, in small little bite sizes, again, design professionals can and should instill those kind of habits. The interesting thing about the space that we work in, and there's so many examples, and you would have seen it through your own your own practices as well, is that we have no control of what people do when we leave, because we can hand over an exceptionally beautiful resolved space, opinion, I guess, again, not science, but we can hand over something that feels resolved and is cohesive. But what then goes back into those spaces is something that we can't control. The trick is, however, to ensure that the messaging that we're giving our clients through the process is the stuff that doesn't necessarily need to come back in unless it has the value, and value is important to them from a significant memory or a travel adventure or any of those things. But when we look at cluttered environments and having to deal with those kinds of challenges with clients, you know, we're talking about sustainability, we shouldn't be throwing it away. But what we're doing is we're cluttering their spaces and their ability to enjoy those spaces. So our responsibility is to take that stuff away. But there are wonderful ways of then repurposing all of that stuff that we're taking away. I, for instance, all clients that want brand new spanking everything and they have existing, I donate all of that stuff to a domestic violence charity, because that stuff can be used and it is welcome. You know, so again, there's the repurposing and the reuse. It doesn't need to go to landfill. People don't necessarily want to buy that stuff, like you said. You know, the young'uns don't want their oldies furniture anymore. There's a perfectly good home for it somewhere. There is a perfectly good home for it somewhere. So again, you know, that's a conscious decision.
So do you guys do a lot of repainting of furniture and things to give it a fresh life? Because that's the thing that's going on here. So that's what I was wondering, because I laugh. They won't take the table from Aunt Martha, but Aunt Martha donates it. They find Aunt Martha's table at the thrift store, and then they buy it for $20 and they go home and paint it, and they think it's, you know, Da Vinci. And I just laugh, because Aunt Martha would have given you the table, but you didn't want it. So
and again, you know, I think this goes to money. So if you're a good DIYer, yes, great thing, little project. But most people want to outsource that. So what then happens is it becomes too expensive. So they just get rid of it and buy something cheaper. So that's our challenge, you know. I guess capitalism is a challenge.
Well, you've made a great segue too into another topic that we were going to talk about, which is you are the president of the Interior Design Association in Australia, and you have been in that role for a number of years now. I notice you're president, membership and marketing. Like you're a triple threat.
That's awesome.
In the design industry. But what I wondered about that, you know how you get alerts from journalistic sources and they say, here's a topic, and if you want to comment on it, send it to us and let us know. And they're always looking for design tips without the designer price tag. And the last time I saw one, I felt like writing back and saying, how about we do journalism without the journalistic price tag? And you know, like we pay $100+ just to get our hair cut, or I do get hair cut and styled, but women do maybe more so. But there's this whole idea that design is something that is expensive. And I think that
should be free.
And should,
you get both sides. That's true.
That's right. So my question for you is, as the president of the Interior Design Association, tell us a bit about the association, but also, you know, what are your goals with creating awareness around design?
The whole mission for the Interior Design Association is to create an association or a community for design professionals. Unlike yourselves in the States, Bobby, interior design, interior decorating, interior styling, none of those are licensed practices in Australia. You don't require a license to practice.
Okay.
I guess so anybody can call themselves any of those things. You can call yourself an interior designer without having a formal qualification. You can call yourself whatever you want, really. There's no limit to or structure around that. In the past 4 or 5 years, there have been murmurings in the industry about licensing our
Okay.
industry, particularly in the design category, because we're making selection choices, be it a tile, be it a floor covering, be it something that you can slip on. So there's a liability attached to it. So I think those practices might change, but yeah, again, slow on the uptake. I probably got too enthusiastic too early about getting this groundswell going because the Interior Design Association was formerly known as the Queensland Interior Decorators Association. But what it was doing, it was, yes, there's a sector of the market that belongs in that space, but it was alienating a whole group of other design professionals that form part of what we all do. And we thought that it would be a really good thing to change the direction of the association to be more inclusive of the whole industry. But then, of course, this little thing called COVID hit. So our national rollout became a fizzle, and only now can we really take it up again. But the objective is to have a national, and then maybe, I think you probably have associations in the States, but the vision is for a national association for the design community. I think if we had that kind of structure, and it goes to this whole thing about paying for services and the value, Tracy, is that consumers and the industry on the whole will take us more seriously. And we flippantly, and I'm guilty of it too, would say things. So when someone asks you, so what is it that you do? I'll flippantly say something silly like, and it's a bad thing because what I'm doing is menializing, but I will say, oh, I chop cushions for a living, which is so far from the truth of what it is that we're actually doing. But it's because people don't grasp necessarily what it is that we're doing. So we have a responsibility, and I think an association like the IDA can do that. It becomes a voice for the industry. So that's the objective. Yes, the borders are now open. If we can get across them now because they flooded. So it's like, can we just stop with all of this stuff for a minute?
Just get back to normal. Just get back to normal.
So yes, that is the objective. So that's the objective, Trace, is to have this national body. So it's akin to, in the Australian context, Bobby, we have the Master Builders Association, which is really for the building industry. And there's also the Housing Industry Association, which is pretty much the same as the Master Builders. So you have this option of being a member of one or both. But I think that's what we need for the design industry as well. Let's talk about consciousness. Let's have the consciousness for our industry again to be relevant in the space, because we are, we contribute a huge amount to the end result of a new build or a renovation or getting a home ready for sale. So bring all of those people together and then you'll have a powerful voice and knowledge and information. I mean, what a source. If you've got all of these heads that are sharing, I think it's a wonderful opportunity.
I think it's a wonderful idea because we do have those differentiations, and the interior designers have their association, need to be licensed. There's all these things that they have to go through. There's a 4-year degree. There's all these requirements for that. And so when I speak to clients, a lot of times they like working with me to stage the house. They'd like me to help them when they move into their new home. And I always ask them, what level of service are you looking for? And when they start talking about renovations, moving walls, and those types of things, I will stop and I'll say, listen, you know what? If you want me to come in, work with what you have, make recommendations for new pieces to come in, everything, I'm your gal. However, once you start looking at that and you're actually tearing things up, moving things around, you really need to be working with a true interior designer. And I tell them, make sure it's a true interior designer, because people just wake up and say, poof, and I'm an interior designer. They don't understand. They're an interior decorator. They're different. They don't have the qualifications. So I think it's really smart, because that's one of the main things I do. Is my job, I look at is to educate. And then plus it's also, I think it's a benefit to the interior decorators, because there's a preconceived expectation as to what level they should be able to perform. Interior decorators will get in. Well, the people start asking questions. Well, can you do this today? And they're like afraid to say no, because they think, well, if I say no, I'm going to lose the whole job. So they start making recommendations and stuff they don't know about. So if you
had this tribe that you can tap into, suddenly you become a full service, don't you? Because I can draw somebody in that I trust and know to assist me to get to your renovation. And then I'll see you later when I come and finish it up for you.
That's right. I've got one happening just like that right now. And I said, when it comes to the bathrooms, I'm going to give you some ideas. but I said, you're going to work with a true bathroom designer, you know, interior designer. Yeah.
Collaboration is powerful, and, you know, it doesn't take away from your signature. It doesn't take away, you know, clients remember the experience more than anything else. We forget that oftentimes. It's not just that day of the handover, you know, it's like planning a wedding, you know, all of this planning, big day, and then photographs, and then we're gone. It's the whole experience. So if you could bring the right group of people in to resolve and to offer solutions, how brilliant is that? How brilliant is that? And it's all part of the same, you know, you're all talking from the same voice, you all have the same goal to deliver an end product. It doesn't require just one person. I think that's the point. So yeah, the objective of the IDA, or the Interior Design Association, is to have this powerful group of knowledge and expertise that can be drawn on for clients, and to be a community for ourselves, because we all need sounding boards. You know, that's the other thing. Most of us work on our own, and it can be very lonely, you know, so having that community to tap into makes a huge difference.
Paul, so lovely to see you this morning. So lovely to spend some time with you and just enjoy your company. Apart from anything else, it's just been marvellous to chat with you, because, you know, we don't get to chat in depth as often as we'd like. So that's...
Do you have any parting words? Is there anything that you would like us to know, or like everybody to know, how they can find you and those types of things?
So yes, I mean, the website is Earthborne by Design. So it's EARTHBORNE by Design. So earthbornebydesign.com is the website. If you have me on again at some point, we can discuss how we came up with that name. That's a different story entirely.
Okay.
Yeah, personal branding is a big thing in our industry, so that might be a really good topic for you in the future.
That's great. That sounds fabulous. And you mentioned Pinterest.
Earthbornebydesign.com. Yes, there's Pinterest and there's Instagram, all Earthborne by Design. So if you just look for Earthborne by Design, that's where you'll find me.
And you have to remember to put on the exotic E at the end of born, the exotic E on the end of Earthborne. That's
and you know what, you girls, I know what happens. You girls always put the Jason Bourne. You put a U in there.
Okay.
There's no U in my Bourne.
You got it. You got it. That's
there you go, caught. And also, what about the IDA? What's the contact for them?
Yeah, so the IDA is just the THEIDA.org.au. So yes, if you're in Australia, we are definitely doing the expansion nationally. The idea is to start in New South Wales, then Victoria. New South Wales and the ACT will be a joint chapter, and then moving on to the West. So we've got the base in Queensland. The challenge, of course, with the IDA or any association in Australia is every state has different legislation. So we have a bit of a challenge of getting that across the line, but we'll be fine once we understand what the regulations or the statutory regulations are for each of those states.
Sounds like
Tracy's
you have a
frozen.
project. Tracy's frozen, and so, but at least her eyes are closed. She looks like she's meditating, which is a good thing.
Yeah, she's meditating. She's taking mental notes.
Taking mental notes for all those things. But she did mention to me just that she loved she loved your work. She loves your whole perspective. And again, I would invite anybody who's watching to take a look at your website. We mentioned, oops, we lost her. Where outcome, the words, because earlier Paul and I were talking about, I said, I like the way his website is set up. It's, what is it? It's project detail. What's the next step? Can't remember.
You catch me out. It's all about the outcome. What is the end result that you're wanting to achieve is the important. Yes, there's a process to get to that, but the outcome is absolutely the goal.
So, yeah, but it's got a great voice. And if any of you are intimidated by design, don't be. And I invite you to go to his website and listen to the way that he talks on the website, because I have the feeling that's who he truly is. And everything that Tracy's told me about him and everything that we've done here today bears that out to me. So anyway, Paul, it was such a pleasure to meet you. And do you ever come to America?
It's on the bucket list. I did it
Well,
the wrong way around. I went to Asia and Europe first. I didn't go to the States.
well, I tell you, if you ever end down here, you have to let me know. I'm out here on the East Coast, so you know, and I could
Fantastic.
connect you up all across the country. So that would be
Fantastic.
fun. So anyway, so everybody, thank you so much for being here for the Occupied Home. And Paul, once again, thank you so much. And Tracy, we'll catch you next time. Okay. All right. Okay. Bye now.
Take care. Bye.